What are the three most important things in real estate? Yep, location, location, location. In our case, it's documentation. So all requests from the authorizing jurisdiction, all deployments, as I said, dates, locations, names of volunteers, hours served, all expenses related to that, and the donations, although we're not being reimbursed for those, again, that counts toward that cost share. So it's a huge benefit to the county. Of course, as nonprofits, we're still responding in the recovery phase. We're still providing assistance, but this is the time that the applicant's briefing is scheduled. And I strongly encourage you to attend the applicant's briefing. You'll be there with all the governmental emergency management. The primary content of the meeting will be regarding public assistance. Hold tight, because they will deal also with the nonprofit piece of it. And there's actually some potential that you would qualify. Certain private nonprofits are eligible for public assistance if their facilities are damaged by the event. So it may apply to you in that regard, but do attend, because you'll hear important information. You'll learn documentation deadlines. That will be very important. So we're going to take a look at some of the documentation, and actually Eric copied some of these, and they are in your packet there, in your folder. So the first one up is the PNP application. Basically, signing this gives Cal EMA the contact information for your primary individuals. It also is signing to say that you're going to abide by the rules and regulations, all the laws applicable to this disaster event. You will be providing your tax ID number. It's very interesting, the DUNS number, the Dun & Bradstreet number, actually DUNS stands for Data Universal Numbering System. And that number, apparently they're going to supply for you. So that's going to make it a little bit easier. Most nonprofits do already have that number. If you don't, it's very simple to get it. There's an 800 number. You can do it online, but it takes 30 days. If you do it on the phone, it's a 10-minute process, and you can get the number in 1 day. So much better to do it by phone. Filling out the contact information on the front. The back side, you'll be providing a summary of the activities that you'll be involved in. And this form is due to Cal EMA within 60 days of the governor's proclamation. So you may very well be in the midst of your recovery efforts still, but you will need to at least summarize the activities. The next one up is the applicant's authorized agent resolution. And this is the official designation of the point of contact. It does require a resolution by your governing board for your organization. And please be sure that the one signing it is not also the one who oversees the board. It has to be a different point of contact. Next one up, and this is the one that will take the most of your time. This is the activities claim form. And there are additional requirements for intermediary private nonprofits, but let's look primarily for nonprofits as a whole. This has to be submitted within 60 days of the completion of all eligible activities. The front side is, again, a summary of your activities. You will be indicating if you are an intermediary on the front. Intermediaries must include the activities of all the nonprofits they coordinate on this sheet. The back side of the form is where you will delineate the activities that took place. They provide 5 categories: labor, equipment, material, contract, and donated resources. Again, even though we're not being reimbursed, that gives the state an idea of what the value is of the resources donated toward that cost share. The claim form can be submitted prior to that 60-day period after the activities if you can prove that you are under financial hardship. So you'll talk to your Cal EMA rep about that. You will be assigned a Cal EMA representative when you fill out your first application. And then after you've submitted the claim form, Cal EMA may come out to your site for an on-site review of supporting documentation. It's another simplification. I was like, yay, government going the right direction, making things easier. I had to submit all of my documentation to the state, far more than you see here, and now it's just saying, we may request to come out and view your documentation. So life is getting simpler and simpler all the time. That's wonderful. Your next form, you really, really want to fill out, because all non-governmental entities must complete the payee data form to get paid. Enough said. Yes.
I've completed a payee data record for other state agency functions, Is there one required for each entity?
For each entity, yes.
Okay, so I'd need this for an emergency as opposed to one that I filled out for a grant.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that to be the case. Don't hold me to that, but I know for my personal experience, I filled it out for Operation OC for the disaster response, and then I've been doing some work individually with the state, and I filled one out for myself personally. And we have a hand up over here.
I noticed you mentioned EMS on take care of victims that are already in a staging area, that might be reimbursed. What about any of the field EMS work that's going to be done by a nonprofit such as the one I'm a member of?
It's going to vary from event to event, but I would talk to your local emergency manager, the agency that you would be working with, that you would be responding to the requests of, to verify whether they would consider that, because it will vary from time to time.
Okay, thanks.
All these documents that we've talked about so far are on Cal EMA's forms webpage, so this is in your notes. You already have the URL. It's down at the bottom of this page for the private nonprofit program. So just a few words about the intermediary private nonprofit. This coordinating piece is established at the request of a local agency, not the state. It has to be a local agency requesting the coordination part. And the coordinating organization must be responsible for multiple nonprofits. Really, it simplifies the process of the paperwork going up to the state. So it's a benefit to have an intermediary in the local area, but not a requirement. If you serve as an intermediary, you must have an agreement with the organizations that you're coordinating. And that would have to include the requesting process, so whether it's phone or email. And interestingly enough, it has a signature line for the intermediary saying that they will abide by the regulations in the agreement, not necessarily a signature of the nonprofit being coordinated. Again, this agreement has to be signed within 30 days of the governor's proclamation. So again, if you have not signed it in advance, at least have the agreement drafted, as we all know how busy it gets during that time frame. The agreement that the intermediary has with the local agency would include their requesting process down to the coordinated nonprofits. It also includes a list of those organizations. I included it as an appendix to our agreement so that it could be updated on a regular basis. Also, you want to include a copy of your agreement with the coordinated nonprofits in your agreement with your local agency. Okay, so then with the agreement with the nonprofits, I jumped ahead a little bit before, it includes the requesting process and that authorization statement. The activities claim form for the intermediary does include the activities of all the other nonprofits they're coordinating. And a key element here is you are also taking on the responsibility to coordinate their request for reimbursement. So you submit their paperwork and you also disperse the funds when they are awarded. So just a couple more details. There are a couple pieces in here. For the intermediary, your time spent coordinating will be a major portion of what you're asking reimbursement for. So this is FEMA's Force Account Labor Summary. It's a simple way to keep track of your hours. It changed how I record my hours. I happen to be a part-time employee. I'm only paid 20 hours a week, but I was working 60 hours a week. So I had to record my regular hours, my overtime hours that still counted as regular, up to the 40, and then my overtime hours. All of this has to be documented, including a benefits rate by percentage. So the next form, and URLs at the bottom of the slide, is the benefits calculation worksheet. So you can be sure to include all the little details of every little piece and the percentage for that aspect. Okay, so now those last details. Whereas we've been talking about the state and local governments having to do the cost share for nonprofits, that's not the case. They reimburse nonprofit organizations 100% the expenses. So to answer the question from earlier, 100% of the expenses. That was a surprise to the Cal EMA folks I was working with because Operation OC was the only nonprofit to submit for reimbursement from the December storms, 2010. So it was a new process for them too. We were both kind of trying to feel our way down the path, cutting away the jungle and finding our way through. So it was a learning process on both sides, and I think a lot was accomplished through that. So 100% of your eligible expenses. And because of the amount of paperwork, nobody wants to do this for less than $1,000 reimbursement. If for some reason there's a grievance in the determination that Cal EMA has made, you think you should be reimbursed for the full amount and they say, well, no, this does not qualify, there is a fair hearing process. And then you are required to maintain all documentation for 3 years. I would hold on to it a lot longer than that. So with that, I want to thank you for your time and attention. I hope this will smooth the path for you should you ever need to make use of this program. And are there any other questions regarding this program?
Do you have any documents that people filled out ahead of time so it helped them with these forms? Like any wage forms? Like UCSB, we have forms in everyone's car. So at the time of a disaster, they start to fill out the forms of what they did differently during that day, because the state, for us, reimburse employees that are doing a different job than they would normally. So that's what we try to capture. So we have forms that they start documenting exactly. So did you have any pre-existing forms that your nonprofits can start working on this?
Operation OC did not have pre-existing forms. I worked just off my regular timesheet and just transferred the information to the FEMA forms. Calvary Chapel West Grove, True Hope, the group that gave over 1,200 hours, had their own, because they generally go out as large groups, they had their own forms to fill out. In the future, we will be developing forms that all of our groups will use, so it's similar format for everybody's information input. Other questions?
Vicki, I'm from Sanson Medical Clinic. We are a nonprofit, but when I saw this ad for disaster cost reimbursement, I was thinking, we're looking for a reimbursement for some of our medical expenses, for supplies and stuff during the event of an emergency. Would we qualify for this?
Again, I point you to your local agency that you would be signing this agreement with, because they would be the ones to determine whether that qualified as an eligible expense. But since it is already covered under the sheltering aspect of donated resources, I'd say there's a likelihood that that could be reimbursed. But again, every event will be different. Other questions?
Would you name a few more of those county, city, government organizations that we would be signing that agreement with?
Well, it could be your city emergency manager. It could be your county emergency management bureau. Operation OC has a signed agreement with our county emergency management bureau. We're in the process of developing one with our social services agency, because they are the agency that activates the local assistance center. And that is a primary response location for Operation OC. Healthcare agency. Actually, for those of you with the medical questions, you might inquire with your healthcare agency whether they would be requesting your assistance, and if you could come under a request from them. Okay, with that, I thank you very much. I hope